Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Paramedic Adventure 17. It's Matt, that firefighter, paramedic guy from home today. I got a good video for you today, or vlog, whatever you want to call it. Before we get started, though, I want to show y'all I got my other shirt on that represents the greatest Christmas movie ever, as we discussed in a video a couple days ago, and that is the movie Die Hard. That one had the picture of the actual Nakatomi Tower on it, where it said Nakatomi Christmas Party 1988. This one has the Nakatomi logo on it, and they designed it like a Christmas tree, put the star up here, and then the little circles here that made it look like holly berries, and then at the very bottom, it's got Nakatomi Corporation Christmas Party 1988. It's fun to wear these around the theme parks, too, here in Orlando, because people see that. They're like, that's the best Christmas movie ever. So everybody agrees that Die Hard is one of the greatest Christmas movies ever made. And Die Hard 2. And also, too, quick survey down in the comments. Out of Die Hard 1, 2, and 3, we all know Die Hard 1 and 2 are Christmas movies, Die Hard 1 especially. But Die Hard 3, where do you think that ranks? Do you think that's better than 1 and 2? Because a lot of people say yes. There's a lot of people that think Die Hard 3 is the best of all of the Die Hards. Die Hard 3 is really good. Like it's excellent. It's got a lot of action, a lot of just in your face, just rough and tough scenes. It's a good movie. But I'm curious to see where you all think it should land in the whole scheme of things. And I'm talking about Die Hard 1, 2, and 3. I don't mean some of those other ones as it got on later and later. But the core group of them, the first three, the original trilogy, where would you rank those? I'm just kind of curious. So to get started today, I had an idea, because today's Wednesday, and I really don't do theme parks on Wednesdays. I try not to anyway, because I work nights. And so I work Tuesday nights, and I work Wednesday nights, and then I work again on Fridays. And then any other night I pick up as overtime. Getting into the theme parks on Wednesdays, unless I do it first thing in the morning right after work so I can get home and get some sleep, it's really hard to do. If I'm really tired in the morning, then I'm just like, screw it. I'm going home. I'm going to sleep. And if I wake up around 1 or 2, then I'm going to do something at home, because obviously I'm not going into a park and then trying to get everything done and then try to get back to work at 7 p.m. So these home vlogs are a lot easier to do on Wednesdays like this. And the reason I got the idea to do this today is I was reading through all of the comments from the last few videos I uploaded, and my goodness, y'all have left some fantastic comments. And I started responding to as many as I can so far. There's well over, I think, 120 between the two videos, just the two Stardust Racers videos, not to mention the other ones, Ice, and then the Trans-Siberian Orchestra video I did. But the one thing that I've noticed that was mentioned a few times, actually, was there were a few of you that left some comments about how you really enjoyed my storytelling of my stories from being a paramedic in the theme parks here in Orlando. And I thought, you know what? I'm always about taking some really good advice from everybody that watches. You give me a suggestion, I'll look at it, I'll be like, you know what, that's a really good idea. Let's implement that. And as I talked about in the very first one, before I really got into talking about the Stardust Racers, what had gone on with that final with the final report, I was thinking about what can we do differently with the channel, because as I'm going to elaborate in a future vlog coming up, the theme park space here in Orlando is so oversaturated, especially Disney. Holy cow. Every day there's 50 new channels popping up. And it's all about the theme parks in Orlando. It's either Disney or Universal. People really don't cover SeaWorld that much. So that's why I want to add some more stuff with SeaWorld. But my gosh, Disney is just getting so oversaturated. Which is why you got to really, if you want to grow a channel here, and you want to cover Disney theme parks and Universal theme parks, you really got to think hard and come up with some really good ideas about how to gather people's attention, because 99.9% of the people out there are doing the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, how many times have we seen people ride Pirates of the Caribbean? How many times have we seen people ride Tron? How many times have we seen people eat and drink around World Showcase and act like complete fools? How many times have we seen people shove all the food in their face from the various food festivals at Epcot? You know, how many times have we seen people look at the merch and tell us how much it is and then buy all the merch and go, oh, look what I bought? How many times have we seen people try to ride every ride in one day? You know, I mean, it's been done over and over and over and over. And now you've got at least 50 plus people a day coming into this space now and doing the same thing without doing anything different. And so try as anybody else might to create something different, you got to try to figure out how to get it out there, but then get it to be separate from all of this immense amount of mediocrity that's out there of just people narrating themselves through the theme parks. Well, here I am parking the car. Here I am walking through the front turnstile. Here I am looking at Spaceship Earth. Here I am walking past the bathroom thinking, my gosh, I got to take a piss. But Guardians of the Galaxy has a low wait time, so I think I should go ride that, and then I'll go take a piss. Okay, now I've ridden Guardians of the Galaxy. Now I'm going to go to the bathroom. Now I'm going to go to World Showcase. Now I'm going to buy this to eat. And now I'm going to show you how I eat this, whatever it is I bought. And I'm going to shove all this food in my face and have it falling off. And then we're going to go do, and it's just the same thing over and over and over again. So, you know, I really want the channel to do well. So we got to do things a little differently. And so one of the consistencies in some of the comments were people really enjoyed hearing some of my stories from working as a paramedic in the theme parks here in Orlando. So we're going to add that into the channel. Maybe on every Wednesday, or we'll figure out a day to do it, but we'll sit down and I'll tell some stories of calls and different things that I've come across working as a paramedic in the theme parks. And we can even branch out from the theme parks. I can talk about some of the calls I've been on as a firefighter paramedic. I can talk about, my goodness, the things I see every night in the emergency room. I mean, I could sit here and talk to y'all for the next, 96 hours plus on some of the things that I've seen and taken part in throughout the last 18 years as a firefighter paramedic. We're going to do a little story time today, and it's going to be some SeaWorld paramedic stories. Now, again, we're not going to mention any names. We're just going to talk about the call, what happened, protect patients' privacies, if you will. That's the whole thing about talking about this stuff. You just can't go name dropping people, but you can describe the calls. You can describe what happened. That's perfectly fine. So for all of you that made that mention in the comments, thank you for mentioning that, and this is for you all, and I hope everybody else out there enjoys this as well. Real quick, before I get started with story number one, let me set the stage for you. Working at SeaWorld, I have the opportunity to work at 3 different parks, okay? You have the main park, SeaWorld Orlando, you have Aquatica, and then you have Discovery Cove. I really enjoy working at both SeaWorld and Aquatica. The parks are enjoyable to work in. I'm always out and about, walking around, talking to people, getting a lot of exercise, getting fresh air, getting some sun, and just, waiting for calls to come in. Discovery Cove's a little different. Not a lot of people, that's a love-hate working out there. Some people absolutely love it out there. Others despise it and don't ever want to pick up shifts out there. Because unlike Aquatica and SeaWorld, where you can be out roaming around, if you've ever been to SeaWorld and you see a guy or a gal in a red shirt pushing a wheelchair with a bunch of medical equipment on it, that's health services. That's either an EMT or a paramedic wandering through the park, making sure the guests stay safe. You can wander through the parks at both Aquatica and SeaWorld, but Discovery Cove, because of how it's structured and it's considered a higher-end experience, they don't want anybody like from health services out wandering around with the wheelchair except first thing in the morning when we're doing the safety equipment checks. So basically you have to sit in that first aid station unless you go on a call. If there's no calls, you're basically sitting in one place for somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. Some people enjoy that. Others, like myself, that like to be out and active, I just am not a fan of it. So I don't pick up over there very often at all. I like to be out and about. Like I said, if there's availability, I'll pick up at either SeaWorld or Aquatica. Aquatica's a fun park to work at too because it's smaller. You can get anywhere you want to go in a short amount of time, and it's just a fun park to walk through, especially now that it's off season. It's not usually very busy during the days. It's a nice place to work. SeaWorld, it's so big, it's split up into two areas. We have the main first aid area, and then we have the Sesame Street area. And so the main first aid area responds to calls in certain sections of the park. And then the Sesame Street area responds to calls in the other section of the park. Basically, it's kind of split down the middle and in segments. We have different zones. We have zones 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you're at main first aid, you're going to be responsible for zones 1, 2, 3, and sometimes 4. If you're over in Sesame Street, you're responsible for zones 4 and 5. Sesame Street doesn't get the call volume that main first aid gets as far as being dispatched out on emergency calls, but Sesame Street gets a ton of walk-ins for like scraped knees and stuff like that. So it's depending on, what kind of calls you like going on, depends on where people will tend to pick up shifts at. So this first story takes place back in 2021. This was late August. I was actually training a new guy that was just coming on board with us at the Health Services Department at SeaWorld at the theme park. And we had a full day. It was a busy day. We had run a lot of calls. Basically, how it was working is, he was shadowing me. I was wanting to see what he was capable of. It was it was the second to last day of his training, so we're starting to put everything all together. So, I could see what he was learning and incorporating, so I'd be comfortable releasing him to work on his own. And so we're going through the day, and like I said, it's late August in Florida, and if you've ever experienced late August in Florida, you know that it's an experience. I always wonder every time, July and August rolls around here, and I'm out wandering around the parks, and I look at all the guests out there, and I'm like thinking, any of you realize how insanely warm and humid it is at this time of year? Did you know what you were getting into? Or did you think, it can't be that bad, it'll be all right, and then you got here and you went, geez, this sucks. I often wonder, if people really know what they're getting into, or they're just like, you know what, screw it, we're going to bite the bullet, we'll make it through. Or others are like, it can't be that bad. And they get here and they're like, oh, man. Especially because late August, man, we always see tons of people come over from the UK, and like that's got to be an insane switch, because I know the weather over there is not like that. I often wonder, what they think when they arrive here in Florida, that 90% humidity just wallops you square in the face like a hot, wet rag, So me and this young man were out walking around the parks. We were just we had about 4 hours left in the shift. We had been on shift for about 8 hours at that point. It was closing in on about 5:30. And all of a sudden, the skies just started darkening down. And I was explaining to him the weather codes and how things work. And you could see the storms roll in. If you've either lived in Florida or have been here during the summertime, you know that these storms, they pop up at a moment's notice. If you've never been here, I'm going to paint a picture for y'all. Imagine a day, you're outside, it's bright, blue, sunshiny, not a freaking cloud in the sky, and you're like, oh, it's beautiful weather. Just it's hot as crap outside. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes go by, and you look around, and it looks like the world is getting ready to end. I mean, the darkest of the dark clouds, and just you can hear the thunder rumbling in from the distance. I mean, these things show up at an instant sometimes, and that's what happened this day. So we're walking through the park, and I'll never forget, we're walking down by Journey to Atlantis, which is a really cool water ride there. And so I can help you all with some visual aids. I went on Google Earth, and I screenshotted some pictures, and I circled some areas and used some arrows to show where we were at. And then I have another one of a larger view of the park, so I can show you exactly what we did, because it's easier to see, with a visual aid on this, especially for those of you that have never been to SeaWorld. You can get an idea of what we had to do here. So we'll pop the picture up here. This is the first one. This shows Journey to Atlantis, okay? So we were coming around the front of Journey to Atlantis, and like I said, all of a sudden, the clouds start rolling in. It's getting dark, and this storm is moving in fast. And the reason we get such bad storms is you get the sea breeze from the Atlantic, and you get the warm air, the warm, moist air from the Gulf, and that comes, and both of those come over Central Florida, and they collide with that hot, humid air that we have, and it just blows up these storms every single day. You can set your watch to them practically. So at SeaWorld, we have what they call our weather conditions, okay? They're different colors, and each color means something different. Weather condition green means we're all good. Normal park hours, normal operations, we're fine. If they call out over the radio a weather condition yellow, that means that storms are approaching. Get ready, because if these storms get any closer, we're going to have to change the park operations here. Weather condition orange means that lightning now is within about 9 miles. All of the high reach stuff, anything up high, water slide towers, roller coasters, anything that has a high reach on it is now completely closed. It has to be evacuated. Everything's shut down. Weather condition red means lightning's now within about 5 to 6 miles. Everything closes. And then weather condition purple means lightning's within 3 miles. Everybody needs to seek shelter. It's a severe storm. Everybody's got to find a place to hide, basically. So we're at weather condition green, and I look up and I see these clouds, and before I could even get it out of my mouth going, we're going to get a weather condition update at some point in the next probably 2 minutes, the radio goes off and says we're weather condition purple. We went from green to purple, not green to yellow to orange to red, just straight to purple. And that does happen a lot in the summertime because of these storms. They just blow up like this. And so myself and this trainee I had, we start hot-footing it around the outer edge there of Journey to Atlantis, and you'll see a circle. You'll see an orange circle on the map here. Where this circle is, this is back of house, as we would say. The general public can't get back there, but ambassadors can. And there's a doorway where that circle is. And we went in that doorway because I remembered from my training, the trainer I had who was really good. They said, if you ever get caught in a weather condition purple and you need to seek shelter and you're in this area because there's not a whole lot of places to go in that area, he said, utilize this door on the side of the Journey to Atlantis show building. Basically, it's right underneath the main chain lift that takes the boats up into the show building. And so we ducked in there, and I kid you not, we hadn't been in there but 25, 30 seconds. And I mean, the skies opened up, the winds whipped up. It looked like God was angry at Orlando. I mean, this was like one of those biblical type storms you would see. I mean, this made a hurricane look mild. I mean, the wind started blowing sideways. If you've never been to Florida in summer, I can't even begin to tell you how bad the lightning is here. In fact, we're called the lightning strike capital of the world, and I think it has something to do with the water table here being so shallow, because we're surrounded by water basically on 3 sides. And so we get lightning strikes here nonstop. So anyway, we duck inside this Journey to Atlantis building, the main show building, and we're just kind of hiding out in there. And I mean, you can hear it. I mean, the wind is blowing so hard, it's rattling the door. There must have been some close lightning strikes because, I mean, it sounded like bombs were going off outside of the doorway. And I cracked the door open a little bit, and the wind was blowing so hard it like almost ripped the freaking door handle off my hand. And I took everything I had to pull the door back shut. And so we're in there. I'm like, yeah, we're going to be in here a minute. And in the next 5 seconds after that happened, the radios that we wear went off for an emergency call. Of course, this is my luck. This is how my luck always works. Because in the summertime, it seems like I can never get a call when it's decent outside and it's not thundering, lightning, and raining sideways. It always happens the minute these storms start. And that day was no different. So the radio goes off, and now I'll explain something real quick. If it's something basic, like if it's a Band-Aid request, a trip and fall with a knee scrape, something mild or something very minor, what we will do, because it's a weather condition purple, is we'll ask dispatch to put it into a queue and let whoever called know that we can't get to them at the moment because of the weather, and that once the weather clears, we will come and evaluate them. Or if they feel that they can do it safely, try to walk to one of the first aid stations. So we won't respond if it's something basic. But of course, this was not a basic call. When it's a potential life threat going on, patient unconscious, patient possibly not breathing, patient, with severe traumatic injury, stuff like that, we got to make the best of it and go. And of course, this call was for an unresponsive person over by the Manta roller coaster. So there used to be an ice cream stand over by Manta. It was called Manta Soft Serve. It's called Rita's now, I believe, but it used to be called Manta Soft Serve. And they said this person is passed out, unresponsive on the ground by Manta Soft Serve. So I'm going to put the other picture up. I'll show you where we were at in the Journey to Atlantis building versus where we had to get to. It was not close. It was not close at all. But it was within our response area. So since it was an unresponsive patient, we had to go. And I told the new guy, I said, all right, man. I said, we're just going to suck it up. And I said, we're going to have to get there and get there fast. I said, just get behind me, keep your head down, and we got to move. I said, we don't want to dilly-dally because, one, it's raining sideways. We do carry rain covers for our wheelchairs so the medical equipment doesn't get soaked, but when it rains like it does in summertime, it's next to impossible to keep things dry. So like I mentioned the other day, I always carry a towel with me because, one, I use it for seizure patients to get it under their head so they don't bang their head on the ground or against an object. But I also use it to keep things dry or dry something off that gets wet. We push the door open because, again, the wind is just whipping sideways. I bet the wind gusts were 50 plus miles an hour at times. And I mean, we just took off running, and you can see the orange line on the picture. We ran from the Journey to Atlantis show building all the way down and around, and then all the way up through the rain, through the lightning, through the thunderclaps and the wind till we get to Manta Soft Serve. And sure enough, there was this lady laid out on the ground, unresponsive. Of course, my first question I always ask to people, that, especially if they're unresponsive, is, are they diabetic? Because usually 6, 7 out of 10 times it's going to be yes. And of course, that was they said yes. So quick sugar check. And so the sugar comes in at 22. That's low. Your sugar should be somewhere between, they say like 68, 70, and 120-ish. It varies for everybody, but 22 is, you're not going to be up and talking. Most people aren't. And so this person is passed out on the ground under the canopy to Manta Soft Serve. So at least we had a little bit of covering. But the other issue is this person was part of like this party of 25. And of course, they're all hovering around, and it's just the one issue, especially with going to calls like this in theme parks, is the element of dealing with the crowds, especially these large families, because you see a lot of big family trips there a lot of times. And I'm trying to get this patient in a situation where I can start helping her. And of course, immediately I get on the radio and I call for Orange County Fire Rescue. And I knew that it was going to be a delayed response. One, because of the weather, and two, because of where this patient was at. They're literally in the center of the park. There's no easy way to get the ambulance into the park. And a lot of times during the daytime hours when guests are there, they will not drive fire rescue vehicles into the park because it's just way too dangerous. The element of possibly running over a guest is very high. The only time they'll do that is like if you go back to my vlog that I did, Sky Tower breakdowns, they absolutely have to do that if fire rescue has to get there. Roller coaster breakdowns, they can do it by getting through the back lots. But calls like this in the middle of a theme park on a busy day in late summer is very tough. The benefit we had, though, was the weather was so bad that all the guests were sheltered somewhere. So what Orange County ended up doing is they ended up driving one of their ambulances onto Seaworld property. And I remember seeing them pull up out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, holy cow, they actually drove onto the property here. But trying to get to this guest and where they were without doing that in that type of weather would have been extremely difficult. So while we're waiting for the ambulance to get there, I checked this patient's sugar. The problem is when you have a sugar that low, you don't really want to go shoving oral glucose in their mouth because that stuff is like glue. You can actually have that stuff get stuck in their airway, which then would be like having glue in the airway, which then at that point you could compromise their airway, and now you got a whole nother problem. So some things you can try to do is you can put a little bit on like a tongue depressor, and you can cheek and gum it there. But that's, when you have a sugar that low, it's really, really difficult to do that, and you're not going to get a whole lot of sugar to get them going. So, I did what I could do. I got a little bit on a tongue depressor, and I cheek and gummed it, but I made sure to really keep a close eye on this person's airway, and of course did the vitals and everything else. The trouble is at SeaWorld as a medic, we don't carry IV supplies. I wish we could. I think that's something we could do if we got a medical director that wasn't, ancient. I hate to say that, but some of these medical directors are so old school. They just have their minds closed off to doing things that would probably help in current times. But what that patient really needed was an IV started, and then like on the ambulance or even in the ER, we carry something called dextrose 10 or dextrose 50. Dextrose 50 comes in this big glass tube, and you screw it. It looks like the old days of Squad 51 in the emergency when they screw the tube and the syringe thing together, and basically it's a giant syringe, and you screw it into the IV and you push, and you got to push hard because it's like syrup. You're pushing that into a person's vascular system, which it carries that around, and then that sugar basically gets right to the brain, which then starts waking the body up. Sugar spikes up because it's a simple sugar, and then they wake up within a matter of like 30 seconds to a minute of you pushing that sugar. And they literally, you can watch it happen. They'll blink their eyes and they'll sit up and they're like, "What's going on?" And you're like, "Hey, welcome back." But since we can't start IVs at SeaWorld, I had to wait for Orange County Fire to get there. And, of course, the whole time I'm talking to the responding ambulance crew about, everything that's going on. So they knew exactly what they were coming up against. Keep in mind, the weather is still unbelievably terrible. And now on top of that, the family's getting impatient because they think myself and my partner aren't doing enough. And so now I got to deal with them. And you're trying to, one, manage an airway of a person that's not responsive. Their sugar is in the toilet. I'm trying to keep an eye on this little, glucose, stick that I got there to try to, cheek and gum it a little bit. So I make sure the airway stays open, put the patient on a little bit of oxygen because oxygen helps calm the body. Vitals were good. Pulse rate was decent. All was pretty well, but I was, the sugar was the problem. And this family, they're starting to, get in our faces. Like, "You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough." I'm like, "Get the hell out of here." So now I got to get security involved. Because now they're interrupting my patient care. And so security gets there. Of course, people have been freaking drinking most of the day. And it started to turn into a shit show. So security gets there. Orange County Police get there because we always have them on duty, which thank goodness for them because they really help keep a nice peaceful order in the park for the most part. So they get there. They start dealing with the family members. I'm keeping a close eye on my patient. Everything's looking good. I just need their sugar up. Orange County Fire gets there. And these guys come through the freaking rain with the cot and everything. We help get the patient onto the cot. They get the IV established, start delivering the sugar because I gave them my report. So they start delivering, it's dextrose 10. Basically, it's sugar water in an IV bag. And, of course, a patient starts coming around. Well, once again, the family starts getting all riled up because what took you so long? You're not thinking about the logistics of this whole thing, about the fact that we had to get out there in some of the worst weather possible. The other issue is this individual that passed out did themselves absolutely no favors. Here they are, a severe diabetic, didn't eat anything all day, didn't drink anything all day, and then wonders why they completely went out, with a sugar of 22. But it's not their fault. It's everybody else's fault. So, long story short, the patient gets loaded up in the ambulance. As they get in the ambulance, they start coming around because their sugar's coming up. And then off to the hospital they go. And then finally we clear scene. And, of course, as soon as we clear scene, the weather clears up, naturally. And I just, of all the years that have gone by, I've just never forgotten that. Just you talk about a situation that you got to manage a little bit of everything. You got to worry about the weather. You got to try to keep the patient safe. And then you got to deal with these maniac family members that think that you're not doing enough. And it just is one of those that always stuck in my head as like something that I use as an example when we get new hires at health services. And I even told the guy I was training, I said, this one right here is about as difficult as it gets. I said, one, you have the element of horrible weather. Two, you have this patient in an area of the park that is very difficult to get an ambulance crew to. And I said, and three, you had the element of a large family that had been drinking all day, and a lot of them were way overserved and started causing issues, which now we got to get security and Orange County Sheriff's deputies involved. So it had a little bit of everything involved in that, but it had a good outcome. So story 2 was this year. This is another one that sticks out in my memory and will for a very long time, if not forever. So this was back in late March. And I remember I showed up to work. I was perfectly fine, got up in the morning, had a good workout. It was one of those shifts I love to work because it's early morning. I love the early mornings at the park because you get like the first 3 or 4 hours where there's no guests in the park. So when I go out to check the safety equipment, it's literally just me and any other ambassadors that may be working at that time. You know, the sun's just coming up. Like right now during this time of year, you got Christmas music playing throughout the park. It's just it's a wonderful time to be there. It's very peaceful. So this was, this shift in late March was just like that. I got there, earlier in the morning, and I think I got off at like 3:30 or 3:45, something like that. And like I said, got up early, got a good workout in, got to work at Seaworld, felt great. Everything's going well. 12:30, 1:45 starts rolling around, and all of a sudden, I start getting this, I feel like I'm just on fire, and my lower back starts hurting really bad, and I knew that just from years past and past experience, when my lower back gets really sore, like stiff sore, like somebody's got a hold of it and it's twisting, and then you can feel like the sweat beads, and you just get that body ache feeling. I knew that there was a flu setting in. I don't know where it came from when I caught it, but I could just tell that I had something getting ready to try to whip my ass. So I'm walking through the park, and I'm like, I gotta go back to first aid and see what my temperature is, because I could feel like myself getting really, really warm, and I started shivering, and I'm like, oh man. So I get back to first aid. I take my temperature, and it's like 102.9, and it was a day where we were already running on short staffing. So going home is not an option. And I only had about 2.5 hours left, give or take, in the shift. I'm like, I can make it through this. I just gotta get through the rest of this shift. And it wasn't that busy of a day, so the chances of any type of just call that might be outlandish, it's nil to none. But you got to remember, it's me and how my luck goes when things like this happen. So I decided I didn't want to be around anybody. I just wanted to get through the rest of my shift, and if a call comes in, we'll deal with it. But I just wanted to kind of get away from everybody, not try to get anybody else exposed to whatever I had going on. So the Nautilus Theater, where right now the Oh Wondrous Night show is being played, after Christmas, after mid-January when that show ends, from mid-January till about summer, not a whole lot happens in Nautilus Theater. They'll have a few events here and there, but for the most part, the theater sits vacant. It really picks up in summertime and then through the fall and then the winter months. So I knew that there wasn't any events going on in Nautilus Theater, and it's nice and air-conditioned in there. So I went over to Nautilus Theater, and I was also in a location of the park where I could get to wherever I needed to get relatively easy if I needed to respond to a call. So I'm in Nautilus Theater trying to cool myself off, and I'm full-blown shivering, and I know I got this fever rolling on now, and geez, just let me get through the rest of this shift. And all of a sudden the radio goes off, and there's a code that we have for when a ride goes down. And then if the ride is down with guests on it, they'll put an X at the end of that. So they'll give the number, and then it'll be X. Sure enough, call comes in for Mako. Mako was down with riders on it, possibly needing evacuation. And I'm in Nautilus Theater, and if you've ever been to SeaWorld Orlando, Nautilus Theater sits right next to Mako, the roller coaster. One of the greatest roller coasters on the planet, a lot of people would say. Has amazing airtime. I'm right there, so I got to respond to this, and plus I'm like only one of 3 medics in the entire park that day. And so I got on the radio and said I would be responding, and as I'm walking out of the Nautilus Theater, I just kept thinking, you know what? Today would be the day when that roller coaster is going to be stuck at the top of this lift hill. If there's any day it's going to happen, it's going to be today. And all I kept thinking is, please don't let that coaster train be at the top of that lift hill. Hopefully this is, down near the station somewhere. We don't have to go up high. And I come out of Nautilus Theater and I look up at the Mako lift hill, and sure enough, I got a picture right here for you. Sure enough, there's the coaster train at the tip top, ready to go over the edge, but not quite. That coaster had stopped with the front 3 or 4 cars over the edge, and then the last 3 still back on the chain. And I'm looking at that going, oh man, today I'm gonna have to climb this thing. I'm gonna have to climb 200 some feet today to help get people off this thing with 102 something temperature going on. This is fabulous. So I get to the Mako platform, and of course I'm trying to stay away from everybody. It's all over my face. I don't feel good at all. Like I said, just trying to get through the shift. And even some of my coworkers that responded to that, they looked at me like, "You good, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, don't feel good." I said, "Just stay away from me. I'm just trying to get through this shift." So normally what happens is when a coaster goes down like that with a train on the lift hill, they will do everything humanly possible, especially if it's at the very top, to try to move that chain, even if it's a couple inches, just to get that car over the top. Because otherwise, if they can't, now you got to harness everybody up, and you got to climb 200 feet of stairs all the way up to the top, and then you got to start unloading people. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Those of us that are trained to go up there, we obviously don't mind heights because that's what we're trained for. Oh, also, Orange County Fire Rescue has to be involved as well with this because this is also a high-angle rescue. So it's a big thing that has to happen when a coaster goes down on a high lift hill like that. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we have to call Orange County Fire Rescue. We're going to have to, this is going to be an entire event. This is going to be, because it could take a couple hours to get everybody out of there. Because you can only do one seat, one row at a time. And when you're that high up, every guest has to be protected and getting down, because now you got to try to convince people, hey, we're going to get you out of this seat. Yeah, by the way, we're 200 feet in the air, and now we got to walk you down 200 feet worth of steps. Some people are going to have a hard time with that. Can't blame them. And that's all I kept thinking about it. I'm like, just got to get to the end of this shift, and I'm secretly praying that they can get this coaster over the hill so it can get back to the station. And they were just about ready to call Orange County Fire to start this evacuation, and they got the chain moving just enough, and the back 2 cars went over that hill, and the coaster began its run through the course. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And so they got back to the station, and they helped everybody off. People get free passes for various things when stuff like that happens. And then the coaster was down for a while. And then it reopened later on in the day. And then, of course, I finished my shift out, and I went home, and I ended up being sick for the next 4 or 5 days. I was home from work for a couple days after that shift. Whatever that was, man, hit me like a pile of bricks. I remember I was taking vitamin D3. I was taking something called quercetin, which is a natural herbal supplement you can buy, which does really well for viral illness like that. And then I was taking little swigs of tonic water. Tonic water with quinine in it. Quinine helps with viral illness. It's got some properties in it that help decrease your inflammatory response in the body. Same with quercetin. And my body really responded well to all of that. Within the first day or 2, my fever peaked, and then, of course, sweated the whole thing out. And then by day 3, I was on the road to recovery. Day 5, I was pretty much back to normal. Day 6, back working again. Because I'm not a fan of squashing a fever with ibuprofen and Tylenol, because They say that with research being done now, that can actually lengthen the illness tremendously, because you're actually suppressing the fever, which is the body's tool to help get rid of the virus. And the more you suppress the fever, the more the virus has a chance to keep on growing and causing more problems, thus keeping you sicker longer. I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a big change in how we treat fevers. I really do. I think that's going to be a big difference coming up. So that was my story with Mako. And like I said, I hope you like some of those pictures. When I was getting ready to go up to the ride platform, I'm like, I got to take a picture of this. I'm like, I'm going to remember this day forever. You know, the one day I start catching whatever flu or whatever it was at work in the middle of the shift. And then we get the roller coaster stuck at the tip top of the hill with a possible evacuation needed. Like, yeah, this is that day. But thank goodness they got it going just enough to where they could get it through the course and back to the station. I have a lot of stories, y'all. Like I said, we could sit down and do this a lot. Hell, we could even do a live stream and sit down, and I could talk with you on live stream and tell a few stories about calls I've been on as a firefighter medic out in the field, or even the things I've seen in the emergency room. My goodness, the stuff that's going on in there. It's unbelievable. So hope you enjoyed that. And again, thanks for the recommendation. I plan on implementing that into the channel, something different, something newer. And yeah, let me know what you think of these stories. I got some funny ones too that I can tell in the next time we do this. So have a good afternoon, everybody. Week's coming to a close, and then we got the weekend. So I'll see you all soon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Fire Medic Adventure 17 is out. See ya.